We get to hang out today, man. I'm pretty excited.
CP, what's
happening?
up, big dog?
What is happening? I'm surrounded by books.
You are surrounded by books. Are you just reading all of them?
It's same book.
The same book.
Same book.
Got it.
It's the same
it's
book.
book you wrote. Got it. Okay.
So I've noticed very little variance between each copy. Like it's, you know what I mean?
Well, it looks like the sales numbers on the books must be doing well because you got a nice stack behind you. So,
buying them up. It was like 10 more to go to hit this month's goal.
Yeah. You're goosing the stats.
Yeah.
Goosing the stats.
We've sold a bunch of these bad boys, though. It's good.
Yeah, it's like 7,500 now, right?
More than that, but yes, it's in that zone. It's like
7,500 plus
7,726, but like who's counting and everything?
Yeah. That's great, man. That's great.
No, I just got the quarterly report. That's why it's top of mind. So.
Yeah. Well, and we just talked about it at the retreat, man. That's the big thing for us coming out of the last couple of days was we just had our internal strategic planning retreat, which we run these darn things every week or dang near every week, with construction companies, but we only get so many opportunities to do it every year with our team.
Yeah, actually, obviously, we're coming off a bunch of really good vibes. It was an awesome time to get with our team, which is fully remote. Everybody's all over the country, servicing clients all over the country. And when we get a chance to pull everybody together, it's just awesome because we get to hang out and like talk about not work for 10 minutes, it's just really fun. But I'll actually, if you don't mind my clarifying, I wouldn't call what we did the past 2 days a strategic planning retreat. I think I would call it like an all hands.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's we definitely you guys, like anybody in the audience might consider, how do you maximize time in an all hands or company wide? Because this was inviting everybody in the company, even folks that were have joined us in the past 2 weeks, kind of thing. So how do you maximize that time? And what we did. We started off by presenting the short, mid, and long range vision for the organization. We then moved into a deep dive into financial performance and upcoming financial projections. We enlisted the team's support in helping to identify cost saving strategies in certain categories where I think everybody can potentially play a role in helping to do some cost savings. So that was like a business challenge that we put in front of everybody to solve. And then we spent a lot of time breaking out into small work groups to deal with issues that the company itself identified via survey prior to the retreat or the all hands, whatever you want to call it. And surfaced a bunch of like crowdsourced ideas from the staff, and then voted on the best ideas, and only like the top 6 had any legs. We only let like the top 6 ideas through that we're then going to push forward into our plan. And then on day 2, we certainly the highlight of the day was to have a client panel of awesome clients of ours who joined us and let our team just ask every question about like, what do you love about us? What could we be doing better? What ideas? Why did you hire us in the first place? Those different types of things, which was super, super potent. I share that whole thing both because I just thought it was a lot of fun, but also because we get a lot of questions about like, okay, so if I pull together all my people, what do I do with them? And that was I think, we've been doing this for 5 years. That was by far the best.
Yeah.
That we've
100%.
ever had. Yeah.
Well, and the other big question is, can I afford the cost to bring all my people together like that? The loss in productivity and the hard costs of the hotels and the flights, if those are relevant things for you wherever you're doing it. And we're so confident in the return on investment that we just got for, all the money that we ended up spending for it, because everybody is just aligned and the energy coming out of it was insane.
Yeah, totally agree. I think you get, a 20% boost in productivity and engagement from that kind of work. And not to mention, it just makes you appreciate your company, your team, pride, longevity. I got to imagine that locked a bunch of people in for the long haul, if that makes
Mhm.
sense mentally. Not that I think there was a gap there leading into it, but if anybody, nobody's walking out of there thinking I got to look for a job,
Mhm. Mhm.
So very, very cool. Definitely worth doing.
Yeah.
We collaborated in a way that I think, man, just I'd like to do that even more.
Yeah. Yeah. So now how do we find time? How do we find the right way to do that?
Well, I guarantee you there's a point of diminishing returns too, right? Like, let's get
Right.
together the whole team once a quarter. At some point
Right.
you're like, wait, this was, we already talked about this stuff.
Yeah,
Like we don't need to get
exactly.
back together. So we do it once a year, with the all hands. But yeah, cool stuff.
It is. Well, good. Well, that seems like a good check-in. Like, I think we're both feeling good.
Yeah.
Vibes are high, and everybody's getting a Friday pod from us, which,
That they could be
That's
listening to at any point in time, but
Right.
these are Friday vibes you're picking up.
These are Friday vibes. Yes. You're picking up on those.
No doubt. So, topic for today, where are we going, Matt?
Today, we are talking about something super exciting, very relevant for most every company out there that's listening. Ultimately, it's around developing an effective employee development program.
Yeah, developing a development.
I realized that like halfway. That was why I started slowing down the words. I was like, the American Dodgeball Association of America. So yeah, I realized, I was like, fuck. I started with developing. I was like, can I use a different word? No, he won't notice. And then you did.
We're gonna hold to our no editing rule, no editing policy, and keep it. No, it's but no. So employee development. What does it actually look like? You hear us talk for sure, talk and write and give speeches on stages about the importance of becoming a training organization. And I think it's all well and good. Sounds cute, but how do you actually make this happen? What should it look like inside your business? And little spoiler alert, like it's not one size fits all. Yours is going to look different than everyone else's and so on. There are so many considerations that go into that as to whether you have field labor that you have to train or don't. The extent to which you self-perform impacts heavily how much training you need to be providing as an organization. The size of your organization, right? Like there's just what's actually feasible for a 12 person or 120 person or 1,200 person company, and what you can pull off, and what the needs are, what the requirements are in those different sizes of organizations. What I hope we're able to pass along are some principles that you can deploy in your business. If I can, Matt, I'd like to share something that was really cool on, a little painful publicly for me, but it was good nonetheless. A LinkedIn post that I made where I talked about the fact that Navy SEAL goes from being a recruit to a SEAL in 2.5 years. And they are incredibly high level operators that can solve an amazing amount of challenges in the field. And I've had the pleasure to know a couple of Navy SEALs who rotated into, the corporate world, and they are extremely highly prized in the corporate world because of what they come out with. Hopefully they don't deploy some of their skills in the corporate world.
Yeah.
But that 2.5 years, and meanwhile, I'll hear clients and non-clients, just folks around the industry say things like, it really takes like 25 years to be a qualified chiller tech, or something along those lines, right? Or so you really need to be doing it for about 15 years before you're really a senior level PM, and things along those lines. And I'm like, if you can be a Navy SEAL in 2.5 years, right? I find it astounding that it might take me 25 years to be a chiller technician. That seems untrue. It seems that seems like an unreasonable barrier. So I wrote a LinkedIn post about it. It was a little snarky, intentionally funny, or at least I thought funny. And one of our clients, who's awesome, brilliant man, his name is Steve. I'll leave it at that. Anybody wants to look up the post can go deeper. You know him very well, Matt. And Steve said, "What in classic Steve form?" He said, "What's the Navy SEALs training budget? How many trainers do they have? What other work responsibilities do these trainees have while they are receiving training?"
I love it. Yep.
And I was like, okay. Yeah, fine. It's not a perfect analogy. I'm not suggesting that it should take you 2.5 years to be the greatest thing ever, but I do think there's a happy middle ground, right? So I want to address, like, what is the happy middle ground? What's actually doable? What's possible as a part of this conversation? But before we get into that, Matt, from your perspective, what are where should we start with just the principles of training, some of the rules to keep in mind as we're putting together an employee development program in our company?
That's great. And I think one of the things that I'll say to start, not quite a principle yet, but program is an important word that you added in there at the end, and I do think a mindset shift that you'll want to take is, am I sending people to classes? Am I giving them a class? Or is this part of a larger program that is taking them to somewhere specific that we're looking for? So doing no training is worse than sending people to classes. Don't get me wrong. And, take advantage of the outside training opportunities, the ABCs, the stuff we put on, whatever, that are out there. Those are important classes to get people in. And then there's a difference when you start thinking about, what are we programmatically building to get the outcomes that we want from these people? And that usually means that you want it cohort based in some specific way, right? That you've got intentionality behind who's in the program. And so that could be all PMs. It could be all PMs and APMs. It could be all emerging leaders, right? So you can slice that a million different ways, but some intention behind who's in the program is important. And then the program should be building on itself throughout, where the sessions tie together in a way that creates the cohesive whole of whatever outcome you were trying to create from the program that you are developing. And so those are just some core thoughts, because that will fundamentally change the way that you go about thinking about what you need to do with your team and how you need to do that. And so I've got so many more thoughts, but I'll toss back to you around because I think there's a couple of principles in there, right? The one, think through what kinds of outcomes that you're trying to create at the end of this, and two, how you can get the right people together to create this cohort that should be getting those outcomes. But what are some other principles that you pull on, Chad, when you start getting into designing it?
So I'll double down on the mind shift from, I need to train this guy, to, we need to have a model for employee development, right? I think it's, even if you're that 12-person company, even if you're that 12-person company today, if you have designs on growth, you need to be building something that scales in time. What you're creating should be something that you can use over and over. Otherwise, your employee development will be inefficient and almost inevitably will have significant gaps, because what you did this time was really to help, Steve to become the best Steve he could be. And next time you're working with Lisa and you do the exact same thing from scratch, it's it's nice. It's high touch for Steve and Lisa, but when you have 70 employees and 120 employees and 200 employees, if that's all you've done, you'll find that nobody's as good as Steve and Lisa. Why can't anybody get there? Well, because you, as you grew, maybe let's say you're the founder, you're the owner, you're the chief executive, whatever, and you're so good and you really care about your people and you're investing in Steve and Lisa, and you just spend a ton of time with them and you show them everything to do and they get really good and they get to that next level. The growth that will then create, because Steve goes out and gets a bunch more work and Lisa can run it, and that starts to scale you up. You're not going to be able to spend the amount of time with the future employees that you did when you were small. So you have to build a system, and everything that you're doing should be documented and designed around how do we, replicate that. I think another, so that's a principle. And then another principle is that you have to differentiate between the types of development you are aiming for. So there's certain development that is aimed at enhancing knowledge and skills. And that is kind of a combination of, I'll call it lecture, right? And practice that you can talk about it, give them the concepts behind it, the why behind it, show them how it works. All that goes into the bucket of what I might call just training. And then there's practice, which is, I don't know, I guess another part of training. It's a component where you want to, in low risk or no risk environments, have people try what you're teaching them so that you can watch the knowledge and skill application at work and kind of do so in a laboratory environment before we set them loose to actually, where there are stakes. So think, that laboratory experimental environment versus in the field versus it, out in the wild, in reality. And that training can continue to occur out in the wild, right? And that's what we would traditionally call on the job training, which is good. That's an important component of employee development. But what I see, so another principle would be, don't jump to on the job training. Begin in the classroom and laboratory and then start to build on the job. Because what you'll then start to see are the gaps in motion. Now, what you definitely can't do is say, they've been through the classroom and the laboratory, now they're good to go, and I don't need to check on them. You're going to have to, this is where bosses tend to get involved. And people will often we need a head of training. Well, that's good. I think at a certain point, it does make sense to have a head of training for your business. Maybe it's 150 employees. Maybe it's 250. It's probably not 20. But, where you can actually justify that level of overhead. You could justify it at 20 if you are, on a hyper growth trajectory and you're making, you're like, look, I know we're going to be 200 people in less than 3 years. And so we better have a head of training. I could get way behind that, and support the heck out of it. Just be prepared to make a little less margin because you're spending, big money on training programs. But even if you have a head of training, it doesn't excuse supervisors from monitoring that in the field. People are executing what they were taught. Right. And so back to kind of the juxtaposition of what are you developing? Knowledge and skills are both really good things to develop in the classroom, the laboratory, and in the field. But then there's this other, these other two things that we talk about, which are habits and worldviews, or habits and attitudes, however you want to look at that, those are harder to train in the classroom. That starts to I can't control how somebody thinks. I can't control what time they wake up in the morning. I can't control whether they drink too much at night. I can't control, there are things that get to a point where they are out of my control. And that really goes to having an environment where they have I'll call it a coach, right? Somebody who is working with their specific things, because you'll have their specific challenges. That is, because you'll have people who totally know what to do and have demonstrated that they're good at it, but somehow still aren't doing it. And that's maybe an attitude buy-in problem or a habit, just can't find time problem. And that's where employee development goes into working with that individual to break through. And that's not something that does well at scale in a classroom. That's something that does much better one-to-one with managers. So if that makes sense.
It does. Makes total sense. And I think, ultimately what you're saying is it's just having the right mindset about what you are teaching in the classroom or the lab versus what you are purposefully giving people opportunities for outside to test whether or not what they learned stuck. And then it is super cool. It really is so cool. And then I'll go into another principle or two, but it is so cool when you do a training, then you spot opportunity for person to do thing, and then you watch them fumble through it. And you're like, cool, I know what that person needs, and I can go give them support and coaching on that now. And maybe further training, but probably coaching and support, another opportunity of similar kind. Then next training, some relevant topic of new thing, and go do it all again.
That's exactly right. You don't get good at shit by learning about it. You get good at it by practicing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a good supervisor is not going to a good supervisor is going to watch practice, not just be, not treat practice like a thing they don't have to be around for. And that's where, again, that you have to have supervisors that are keepers of the best practices, of the SOPs, whatever you want to call them, that are qualified to actually be able to monitor practice and say, wow, okay, cool. They did, points 1 through 6 really well, and points 7 through 10 really poorly. And I don't think it's because they don't know what to do. I think they either A, need more practice, or B, I need to work on a mindset with them, or help them to see where they have to develop a new habit or something along those lines. Yeah. But in that ecosystem, the employee development ecosystem, there is a clear classroom and laboratory training component, and an on-the-job practice component beyond that. And then have to have access to somebody who can provide the tweaks to take people from okay to good, from good to great.
Yeah. I love it. Very good. A common question that we get around training, by the way, is how often should you have it? And what I have found myself is saying when somebody asks that is there's actually no one answer for how often you do your training as a part of your leadership development program or your PM development program. The cadence for the training, from what I've learned, should be directly correlated to the rapidity of development that you need from that group of people. How fast do you need to get them from A to B? And depending on the answer to that question, it immensely informs the decision that you make. And so it's still better to do something like, it's hard for people to stay focused if you're just doing 2 trainings a year, right? So like, if you're like, they can go slow. Well, then cool. Still, only doing them every 6 months is probably not enough for those ideas to stick and for them to really grow on top of them. So keep that in mind, but it should be directly related to that, which means sometimes, by the way, that you may do things like have a 3-month sprint of project management training where you do it every single week. Let's say you just signed a bunch of work and you've got 4 new people on the team, 2 new people on the team. I don't care. It doesn't matter. And we need to get good fast and get people to the same benchmark at the very least before we have this crazy summer that we're about to have. Then buckle up and get going every single week on that program, right? And a corollary to that one, especially for larger programs, where if you're saying, I want to see our company develop our leadership, the outcomes you're looking for. I want to see us develop our leadership pipeline so that we're in a position where key roles like department leadership, for example, each have a obvious successor to those roles. And we want to do that by 18 months from now, or 24 months from now, or 12 months from now. One other corollary that I would recommend as it relates to, I guess this is less cadence, but more structure, is find some way to create an immersive experience early on in that program. And one way to do that, for example, would be that, hey, we're going to run our first internal leadership development program over the next 18 months. And we're going to start it with 3 full days in the conference room. And we're not going to do another session for 2 months or 3 months. But this first one, we're going to go hard for 3 days and we're just going to do it. Because what that does is a couple things. One is it immerses the team into the idea of this program. And when you immerse them into it, they now see it differently. And as opposed to just seeing it as this class, this training that they want me to take, they actually start to think differently about it and think more about the things that they learn in those couple of days in their job after the fact, because they recognize that we're taking it freaking serious, right? The other thing that I think it does is it just it motivates the team to basically understand that what I do in here is going to be something that I must need to use over and over again, because otherwise they wouldn't be taking 3 days out of my week to do it when I could be running work, or out in the field or whatever those things are. And so it's a very helpful way to kick off a larger program like that, because it really does change the mindset of the group that's in there.
Yeah, I love that, and you're using in this particular case like leadership readiness as an example, something along those lines, and I think that's true, but I also think it's applicable for positional readiness.
100%.
And, when you look at the best training organizations outside of the construction industry context, you just look at the best training organizations in the world. You think about things like, the United States Armed Services, things like that. But you also look at the top, Fortune 500 companies and what they do. It's very, very common that the first X period of time, whether that's 10 weeks, whether that's 3 months, whether that's 2 days, whatever it is, the first X period of time, you have no job but to be in training. That's your job. And this is exceedingly difficult for small to mid-sized contractors to pull off. And I totally get it. I understand,
Yes.
the hesitance. And I challenge you to embrace the concept anyway. There really is so much value to making someone a trainee for a period of time and being highly intentional about their development. That doesn't mean that they have to sit in a classroom for a month. That's not necessarily what I mean. I mean they don't have a job description beyond learning for a period of time. So I'll share an example of what I've seen done really well. For example, with new project managers, new PM gets hired, and maybe they've been a project manager before. So in our minds, we're like, "Wow, great, they're a project manager. We're going to hit them with workload." For your first month, you don't have workload. For your first month, we have this class that's going to be a half day, and you're going to learn, the XYZ Co way for project management. Then we have this set of online recordings that we've developed over the years of other trainings that we've amassed and organized into an intentional workflow. And you're going to have quizzes that you're going to take. And then on Friday, you're going to meet with your supervisor, and they're going to review some skills and knowledge with you and confirm that those things have stuck. And then the following week, you're going to spend the entire week with this project executive, and you're not going to do anything except for ride along, take notes, and ask a bunch of questions. And we're going to give you a checklist of things that you need to observe and ask over the course of that time, so that in week 2, you're learning from our most experienced professionals in this zone, how they do their work and what they need from their PMs. And you're going to watch how they interface with that team, right? It's this curated process. And a lot of people just call it onboarding, and I don't think that's wrong. But I think when people conflate onboarding and orientation, they're like, "We have an onboarding." I'm
Oh,
like, "Great, what is your onboarding?" And they're like, "Well, we give them their computer and their passwords, and we show them how to use the tech." And
yeah.
that's it. I'm
Yeah.
like, "That's
Yeah.
orientation.
Yeah.
That is not onboarding." And so going back to your concept about, like, there are times when the frequency should be a lot. To me, when somebody is first hired, and I don't care if they have experience or not, they should undergo an intensive for a period of time. And that could be, like I say, it could be 2 days, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 months. I do encourage you, though, to have the duration of that intensive be commensurate with the complexity of the role they're undertaking. One client of ours hired a CFO who was a CFO, had that background, all those types of things. But we designed with them an intensive for 3 months where they were a trainee, because it's a huge job. It's just a
Hmm.
huge job. And we didn't have to teach them how to read a P&L, but you know what? We did want to confirm that they understood a handful of things. We didn't want to take any of that type of stuff for granted. We wanted to make sure that we closed any little gaps. Now, we did a lot of
Hmm.
work in the interview process to make sure that we didn't have like a dud, right? But you don't want to take anything for granted. My God, how many times, Matt, have we seen clients hire PMs or superintendents or fill in the blank who have resumes with 8 years, 10 years of experience in that
Yes.
role, and they come in and they don't understand like fucking basic stuff. And then you get all mad. You're like, I can't believe that guy, blah, blah, blah. And then they like, fire them instead of just
Yes.
identify the gaps and close them right out of the gate. You cannot take for granted that people come in knowing everything you need them to know to be successful. And for you to act that way is ridiculous. It's childish. Get off it. Right.
100%.
Like,
and
okay.
They get angry every time. Every time. That's what it is. It's anger every single time.
Right. And they're like, I can't believe they don't know how to do blah, blah, blah. Like, well, believe it, pal. The companies that they worked at beforehand didn't train them on this shit. And if you don't, then you're just going to pour whatever money you just spent down the drain too. So why don't you get good at fixing the problem and have an employee development program, a system for them to, for you to take people with good potential and people with applicable backgrounds and ensure that they have everything they need to be successful in the role. So I look at that as like that positional onboarding is a prerequisite. It's an intensive, and it should exist for all of your roles, but it should definitely exist for all the roles that you have multiple people into and you're going to be hiring into every year, estimators, APMs, and so on, right?
Yeah.
So we have like positional onboarding, and then I like talking about cohorts, positional mastery. Okay, now we have an ongoing, and now that is lighter touch. Once a month, we get together and we do a PM training on the fourth Friday of every month, or whatever that is, and keep the habit going. Keep the have a curriculum. I've been through this training, and it doesn't hurt to go through it again. Like you're gonna always tighten up your skills. Reinforcement.
And maybe you'll teach it next time if you've been through it before.
Exactly. And I found it's hysterical. Like the veterans who've like been through the training, you think that they'd be like all checked out. Nah, dude, they love it. They get an opportunity to say, this is the answer. This is what you do. And right, like that kind of stuff. It's just like, it actually is a rapport builder, and it's a confidence builder. And you're exactly right, man. Like that person now becomes a staff trainer that you can say, hey, you run these, right? And that's now you've scaled and you're scaling further. Maybe it was the CEO who was running those when you were 50 people, and at 150 people, the CEO has entrusted a team of people, to run that training. And then the last thing that I'll say, and then I'll get off my soapbox, is positional readiness training post onboard. So like for the next position. Quick break to tell you that if for some strange reason you're listening to this and you like the way we think, we've got more good stuff for you. You can get all of our best playbooks in one of three places. One, our newsletter is a must subscribe. We share articles from our top consultants and playbooks from market-leading contractors every other week. Over 5,000 contractors are already signed up. Two, we wrote the book on top 2% performance for contractors. It's packed with 15 years and 100 plus contractors worth of knowledge and has 4.8 stars on Amazon. I guarantee you'll walk away with new ideas for profitable growth and less chaos. And three, if you're a bold, ambitious contractor who's ready to reach the next level of profitability and operational excellence, we have a staff full of construction pros ready to help. You can see all the different ways we partner with contractors on our website. So check the show notes for links to the newsletter, the book, and our website. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. So, and this is where you could start to say, okay, I've got this PM. They've been a PM here for 3 years. They're really, really strong. They're demonstrating all the right stuff. We want to get them ready to be a senior PM. Rather than promoting them and then training them, why don't you take the next year to incorporate that PM into the senior PM cohort in their training curriculum, and develop the skills and the capacity to be a senior PM before you make the hire, right? The promotion, that is, before you make the promotion. And this, like, as you can see, right, like it all these components snap together like a machine. And what's cool about that, like readiness training, is it's the same basic stuff you'd be doing in the intensive onboarding, but you get a chance to spread it out over 3 months, a year, 2 years. Or whatever, to take a group of people that you think have what it takes to take a next step in the business and get them ready for it. So,
Chad, use that as a segue to talk a little bit about hard skill versus soft skill as well.
Yeah, the hard skills are the things in the business that they have to know to be able to execute the quote unquote job. So it's, your understanding of Procore, it's your ability to do a cost projection, financials,
Yeah,
it's
doing a takeoff.
doing a takeoff. Exactly.
Hmm.
Sales is an interesting one because that looks like a soft skill, but there are actually a lot of hard skills involved,
Hmm.
in selling a job.
Hmm.
I would argue that negotiation is a hard skill, but at any rate.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look,
I would argue the other way, but not that we
yeah,
need to do
well,
that.
maybe we'll do an XVY on that at some
Yeah,
point in the
yeah,
future.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess my point is that there are systems to understand,
Hmm.
right?
Yes, that's
And,
true.
and
That's true.
there is a provable right and wrong way. Yeah,
There's knowledge based information that is useful.
correct, and something that you can, kind of master in the same way that you can
Hmm.
master Excel. And that's kind of my point. Soft skills are those things that really, I mean, for simplicity, relate to just, human to human interaction and navigating the complexities of working with customers and vendors and employees, bosses, and, all up and down the chain and things along those lines. And I think soft skill development is arguably important for everybody along that chain. So that I would argue inside your positional training, there should be baked in soft skill development relevant to the project, to the position. Right. So like project managers shouldn't just be learning about scheduling and cost projections. They should also be learning about how to appropriately position a change order to a client, how to deal with a frustrated client,
Yes.
how to get your vendor to make the delivery when
Yes.
when you need them to make the delivery, and how to influence people, and how to simultaneously get what you need while people feel good about it. All those different types of things. I think companies do, as a rule, a pretty poor job of developing those things, but they also do a poor job of developing hard skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody wants everybody to come to them good. And I think at the
Yes.
end of the day, like that whole Navy SEAL thing, my point was just genuinely that our current approach to employee development is do the damn job for a long time and you will eventually get good.
Yes.
But if you try to make them good and you build a system in which they learn how to be good, they will get good so much faster. And the same is true with soft skills. And if you pay short shrift to soft skills, don't be surprised when you got a bunch of assholes on your team.
100%. Yeah, thank you for going down that, because I do, the number of times, and this isn't even like a bad thing, but it's just a reality. The number of times I've said to one of our clients, "Hey, will you send me the program you've created for, the estimating training you're about to do?" They send it to me and it's freaking awesome. And it's, 14 different topics. And
Right.
I look at it and I go,
out. Yeah.
and yeah, sometimes, yeah, true. Now it is.
Yeah.
And then you look at it and you're like, okay, it says how to take off foundations and how to deal with this specific contract type and how to, whatever, so on and so forth down the list. And I'm like, where in here are we helping the team learn how to call the customer and really understand their needs? Where in here are we adding information about how to best collaborate with project management, right? And so you start getting into some of those soft skills. So I think it depends on the person. You could have somebody that leans more soft skill and some that lean more hard skill. So either way, just check yourself when you're building the program that you're mixing in both. And if you are that technical brain that's often, the person that's building a training program, don't forget that soft skills guide, and don't be afraid to pull somebody else in to help you with that side if that's not your absolute strength.
Yep.
So
agreed.
And just I think one or two more things jump out to me on this, Chad, and one of them is really simple, but I've seen people's brains explode when suggesting it. Record everything. Every single one of those PM trainings that you do, record it. It's never been easier to record what it is that you're doing. It can go right on Teams, or there's apps, there's separate recording devices, there's so many things. And every single time you do one, it goes into a folder. And beyond that, it goes into the onboarding program and people can watch that stuff. And a manager can say, hey, I know it was 4 months ago, but you're dealing with this thing. And that thing was the thing we talked about 4 months ago. Go back and rewatch that training. Come back to me with questions. It can be repurposed in so many ways. So simple rule, record all of the training that you were doing along the way.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I'd even take it a step further and say, don't just record your training. Record internal conversations, coaching conversations,
Right.
Things along those lines. There's so much gold in what you're doing day to day. You are actually demonstrating what good looks like every single day. There's got to be a way to capture that, and there are ways, to Matt's point, to capture that today and turn all of that into just genius content.
Yeah. No, so true. So true. And so maybe, last thought, feel free to pepper any on top, but a last thought that comes to mind for me is just, I've learned this actually in our own business. I've found that it's actually easier for me to strategic plan for our clients than it is for me to strategic plan for Wellbuilt. Because with our clients, I see a problem and I go, this is how you fix that problem. You need to go do this. When it's internal, what I found over the last year is I go, well, I think this is what we need to do, but this person's got this on their plate and that's going on and our calendar is like this and that. And I start clouding up and then I start thinking, okay, so what could I make happen with all of that baggage in my head? And I probably learned this from you, Chad, but the thing that I've had to I repeat it to myself, it's a mantra when I'm going into that strategic plan internal brain is I give myself permission to dream about the ideal and to ignore the current situation.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I go and I dream about the ideal, I figure out what's actually needed. And then I'll figure out how to fit that into the current reality. And it might mean that some of that ideal needs to change. Don't get me wrong. You don't always get to plug the ideal into the outlet and turn it on and it all works out fine. But it fundamentally changes the way that you think about it. And so it's so hard in most instances. I can't tell you the number of companies that are not training because we don't have time to train. We don't have time. We don't have time. And if that is you, take 3 hours and give yourself permission to think about what the ideal really should look like to get those outcomes that you're looking for. And then we'll talk about how to implement it.
It's awesome. Great convo, Matt. Appreciate it, man.
Great stuff. Good topic. Thanks for suggesting it.
Yeah. Yeah. What are we gonna debate here?
Fits into this conversation of employee development in some ways and retention and keeping people around. But basically, should you hire a recruiter to find you people that then you bring in to train and get them skilled up, or should you do that recruiting internally?
Mm-hmm.
And so, which side of that coin should you be on?
Should you hire? How much reliance should we have on outside recruiters? Is that's kind of the gist?
I think that's the gist, right? Go ahead. You look like you're chomping at the bit.
I have so many thoughts on this particular. Look, there's a space for outside recruiters, no doubt about it. I think the primary space for outside recruiters is when you have to do under the radar searches. You've got somebody in a role that you can't have nobody in that role, but that person is not the right fit. And you know that if you go and, advertise XYZ Co as hiring a controller, your existing controller is going to be looking around like, but that's my job.
Yeah.
That probably makes some sense for a confidential search to reach out to a third-party recruiter and have them manage that process for you professionally and confidentially. Keep it off the radar. I really believe strongly that contractors need to own the recruiting for their recurring needs. That's probably the biggest thing, right? Like hire an outside, hey, you're going to hire a business development executive. You have none of those on the staff. You don't even really know what good looks like as a business development executive. Go get a recruiter who specializes in business development executives to go out and find you a business development executive, right? That can make some sense. I surely hope you know what a good PM looks like. I surely hope you know what a good estimator looks like. I surely hope you know what a good foreman or superintendent looks like, and so on. And if you are dependent on outside recruiters for those positions and you're a company of any size at all, you're going to find that your outside recruiting spend is absurd. Right. One of our clients, about 120 employee company, was spending upwards of $500,000 a year on outside recruiting firms for PM and superintendent roles.
Yep. And I wonder how many of them stayed. Wonder how many were good.
The failure rate so high. It's just a mess. So I think everybody kind of knows that they should own that internally, but then they just end up grasping at straws. And I get it. I get, like, you have a whole bunch of other things going on, and recruiting doesn't really fit into your basket. But I would lean very heavily on the idea that you must own recruiting internally for your recurring need roles, for the roles that you are going to have to fill yourself. I'm sorry, that you're going to have to fill regularly.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be relying on a third party source for that. Not just the cost, but also the success of the hire, to your point, Matt, right? Like, what the number one success for sticky hires are employee referrals, right? That's number one. Employee referrals, people that come in through your existing employees network, friend network, whatever, those are people that have the highest rate of success. I think there's a pile of reasons for it, but not the least of which is that your existing team kind of, knows who the dummies are and who the smart ones are in their existing network, and they're like pre-screened. So yeah, we can get into a little bit of how. It's probably a separate episode for like launching.
Yeah, it honestly is. Yeah,
it really an effective internal recruiting effort. But that's where I come down on it, Matt. I wonder what you have to add or differentiate.
Yeah, no, so I totally agree. On the recruiter side, I do think it's worth saying that there is a time and a place for it, just like you said. And I think especially if you don't have that competency already, that can be a good use. And the other one that and this might just be surprising more than anything because it surprised me. I have seen that hiring at the executive level through a recruiter is more successful than hiring at the doer level. So you're more likely to find a good vice president through a recruiter than you are to find a good project manager through a recruiter. It's hard to bring that person in from outside, and there still are failures when you make those higher level executive decisions. So I don't want to make it sound like it's just do this and it'll work out fine. That's often not how it goes either. There's still a lot that you need to control. But I do find that there are people out there who their boss just told them that they don't want to grow anymore, and they're really interested in growing, and they're already in a VP seat at where they work, and they go contact a recruiter because they just feel disappointed that they're not allowed to grow their division anymore. Mm-hmm. And then they go find a company that wants somebody to grow a similar division, and there's great alignment. So that kind of fits into the puzzle as well. And then beyond that, what comes to mind is that recruiting should be everybody's job. That's the best case scenario. And that goes to your employee-based referral. But beyond that, at the very least, don't let it just be your responsibility as the founder, CEO, or whatever you are. Put that responsibility on your department heads to be active in the recruiting of the people that they need, and going to job sites and just noticing this PM from a different trade. But man, when they're in the meetings, they're good. And shaking their hand and getting to know them. And each person in your company is capable of writing a LinkedIn post that talks about what it's been like to work there and how they're looking for somebody, or to post a job ad on Indeed, right? And so one of the reasons why these things often get overlooked and that people can't find people and they just go, oh, we'll get a recruiter, is simply capacity, the capacity to be able to do it. And the more that you distribute that capacity across your team, for each individual person, it's a fewer number of hours that they need to spend doing it, that they just need to find how to fit that into their role, as opposed to, again, think about if it's you, the founder, and you're trying to do all the recruiting. Well, now we've got all that you're already doing as the founder, CEO, president, plus 25 hours, a quarter doing recruiting activities, and it starts to become untenable. So drive that responsibility down, allow your people to come to you and make recommendations that I believe we need another project manager, right? Like, teach them how to recognize those things. And then I think the last thing that kind of fits into this conversation is when do you hire? And I'm actually not just talking about like the office manager or the HR generalist that can support with these things as well, because that is great to have that function to support your managers in doing these recruiting activities. But actually, I'd like to just kind of mention when do you hire a talent acquisition specialist or an internal recruiter?
Somebody full time to be on sourcing.
and that's their sole job. And Chad, I'd be interested, in your experience, how you view this. I'll just say from mine, what seems clear to me at this point is that first of all, it probably starts to happen at a higher revenue size, something over 100 million. Doesn't have to be that, but that's where I've seen it. And the other one is that the get work side of the business is so strong at producing backlog and pipeline that you can see the growth that's going to happen, and that growth is consistent. And the only way that you can really screw up that growth is if you fall on your face with the projects that you sign, and you then backtrack to this need to be onboarding people all the time, whether that's PM, estimator, superintendent, to be able to maintain that growth trajectory. And when you start to feel that, I'm not sure how we're going to be able to keep pace feeling, and we can see it for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, and it's sustained. It is so worth looking at a full-time recruiter to come in-house and to put those resumes in front of your people to get that onboarding process going all the time.
I agree. I think that's a good. So you took those two scenarios, big companies and companies that can see a whole bunch of work coming down the line. This is one of those items that feels like a chicken or the egg to me. That I'm sure, I don't know if the audience has listened to all the episodes, but I remember in a previous episode saying something along the lines of like, related to SOPs, that one of the things I have found is I'll go into these really, really, really big companies and I'll see these amazing documented SOPs, and I'll be like, man, of course you have all these documented SOPs. You're a really big company. And they're like, well, dude, we got these documented SOPs when we were much, much smaller. And I think it's probably why we're bigger. I think it's actually very similar on the recruiting front. Now, whether you hire a full-time talent acquisition specialist or whether you are just excellent at getting your department managers and even direct hiring managers to participate in employee sourcing, and the whole team is really a recruiting engine, whatever it is, right? Like people, for God's sake, people are like the biggest bottleneck. Yes, bar none.
100%.
And furthermore, they're the biggest multiplier, bar none. Like, I just genuinely believe that if you load your team with awesome people when you don't need them, you will grow into it. You just will. Those awesome people, if you have A players, imagine a team of A players. You got 4 more PMs than you need and 2 more estimators than you need. And right, like I could keep going around all the positions, but won't. If you had all that going on, you would grow. There is no question in my mind you would grow. So I guess my overall sentiment would be that you should probably consider this, particularly to the extent that you are struggling to create a recruiting machine across all of your hiring managers. You should consider this position earlier than you think, and own that internally. And let's say you're going to pay $100,000, $120,000, $80,000, somewhere in that zone, right? $80,000 to $120,000 all in for somebody who's really good at this job on staff. And that's going to vary. I'm sure there are people at the top end of that who are super offended at the range that I just gave. But like, yeah, I've seen this movie a bunch, so sorry. It's just kind of is what it is. But how much you paying a recruiter's fees, right? How much is it costing you to have a PM vacancy for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? Right. It pays for itself a lot quicker than you think. And if they're good at their job and they are stacking you up with, and people say this all the time, well, we don't need like more than 3 or 4 PMs over the course of any given year. Again, I'm just back to saying like, but what if you had 10 A players? Would you hire them? And what would your business be able to do as a result? Just ask it. I'm not saying you got to hire all 10, but do you have any B players or C players on your team? Could you see maybe firing some of them and replacing them with some of these A players that are coming in? Right? I mean, like, we got to think a little bit more like a football team every now and again. Yes, we've got, we're going to have 3 roster spots for running backs. And yes, we're interviewing more running backs. So, get out there and kick a bunch of ass and you have nothing to worry about. And on brand. I'm the asshole in the conversation, but I think options on the hiring front create huge opportunity for the business. And now I'll finish with one like hard metric. If you are hiring 10 to 12 new people per year into your business that you can't execute through just putting an ad out and having qualified candidates come in. Right. So maybe you're hiring, 20, but like 15 of them are easy to fill and they're satisfactory filled with just an Indeed post and calling it a day. Right. Then you wouldn't qualify. But like if you have 10 to 12 roles that you're like, man, we got to do some search for every year, that I think you're ready for a recruiter.
Awesome. Great stuff, Chad.
Cool, man. What you reading?
So I got like 7 chapters left of Churchill.
Okay.
I got like 7 chapters left of volume 6. So I'm going to be very sad, but I've actually found my next addiction, which if you listen to the last episode, you'll know that I'm just continuing down the path. I am reading The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. And so, and yeah, I'm like about to go on a spree of the Lord of the Rings universe, because there's like the books that he's written, and then there's these books that he published. And then after he died, his son went back and compiled his notes, and he wrote so much collateral to explain the world and how it formed and all of the world building behind it that informed the stuff that he published. And then his son actually published a bunch of stuff that he had written posthumously and explained it further. So Hobbit is one of the ones that he's, wrote and published. Obviously people know it, but I'm going to get super weird on J.R.R. Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings universe as my next addiction after Churchill. So just letting you know.
I think that sounds probably good for your soul. That sounds good.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure.
It's
Look,
so good.
I love the movies. I've never read one of those books, but I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. I can tell. Yeah, I can tell. Yeah. What are you reading, Chad?
I'm reading. Talk about a complete non sequitur here. I'm reading a mergers and acquisitions textbook.
Nice. You've been thinking about reading that for a while.
Yeah, it's
or you had it in like your Amazon cart for a long time or something, right?
Yeah. And,
okay.
And I'm pouring through it, and it's really good. It's a very useful guide to understand the different sort of forces at work beyond kind of the stuff that one would know. It's definitely like a 400 level book and not a 100 level book. So that is meeting me right where I kind of need it at the moment to bridge the gap on some, the nuances that impact valuations and the types of equity stacks that get put together and all the different exit vehicles beyond the traditional exit vehicles that we tend to think about. So it's definitely expanding a necessary knowledge gap for clients, and looking forward to putting it to use. So it's going good.
That's awesome. Have you fallen asleep reading it yet?
Every time I fall asleep reading it. Yeah, every time.
And you wake up and you're like, why am I like under a weighted blanket? Oh no, that's the textbook on my chest.
Yeah, usually my face. Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully, I don't wake. It doesn't take long to realize it has happened. It's like a bonk. Like there we are.
Yeah.
Goes quick.
I'm sure it's great. I'm sure
it
it's
is.
Great.
No, it's really
can't wait
good.
to
It's just
hear about
I read
it.
right before bed, so that's what we do.
Yeah, that's what you do.
All right, brother. Well, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for the riveting conversation. Thanks everybody for tuning in. As always, really appreciate your support in the audience.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Go be nice to somebody today, guys, and keep growing. Keep growing. Fun stuff.
See ya. That's a wrap. If you enjoyed the conversation today, subscribe to the Well Built Podcast so you don't miss the next one. New episodes drop regularly. And if you want more tips and tricks like the ones we dropped today, subscribe to our newsletter or get your copy of the Big Book on Market Leadership in the show notes. Last but not least, if you're ready for the real thing, we'll get in the trenches with you and turn our advice into market leading systems customized for your business. All links are in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Now go build something.